what do you understand by good corporate governance, and what are the ethical concerns in private sector? Okay, this is a very direct question. What do you understand by good corporate governance? Okay, so you can define because the question is directly asking you what is good corporate governance. You can define what is corporate governance. You can define what is corporate governance. So corporate governance is a system of rules, practices, and process by which a company is directed and controlled. So that involves balance of company's stakeholders, all the stakeholders, whether it is the owners of the company, whether it is the stakeholder employees of the company, whether it is the customers of the company, whatever it is, all of their needs will be taken care. That is what is known as good corporate governance. Okay, then you will also have to mention, because what do you understand broadly, you can write. So you can put a flow chart, good corporate governance. In flow chart itself, you can finish it off. So what are the this one? So key principles of good corporate governance is fairness, okay, accountability, okay, responsibility, transparency, equality. All these principles have to be abided by a corporate. That if it abides by all these principles, then it is known as good corporate government. Like this you can write. So then you have to mention figure showing features of good corporate governance, and then you put a box. Is that okay? So this is how you can write. So this will be the first part of your, this is your first part of the question. The second part of the question is, what are the ethical concerns in private sector? What are the ethical concerns? This I already mentioned, discussed when we discussed about corporate, good you know, what is it, that second question, no? So there I had already mentioned it. Or third question, business and ethics. Same thing over here, you can also add to your answer over here. What are the ethical concerns? Okay, so in ethical concerns in private sector is that in most of the private sector, there is no ethical code. Okay, there are no rules and regulations. Most of them are run by like a private institution, which does not follow these ethical rules and all that. See, government means they will have rules and regulation, but not all private companies will have ethical codes, code of conduct. A small business, will they have ethical codes and all? Maybe big MNCs might have, but small ones will not have any rules and development. So that is another problem. Second is, there is compromise of ethics in order to increase their profit. Okay, then there is lack of transparency, because most of them are run like a family business, so they lack openness and transparency. Another ethical dilemma is founders control. That means who is the owner of the business, they control the decision making. Okay, then today we also discuss about privacy and data protection, correct? No, so private sectors collect a lot of data, so the protection of this. So like this you can write, what are the major ethical concerns with respect to private sector? So in conclusion, you can just simply mention, okay, how to improve corporate governance. How to improve corporate governance? You should mention Companies Act 2013. You can talk about SBI, SEBI guidelines with respect to corporate governance, etc. You can mention over here. This is what is expected from you for this question. What do you understand by good corporate governance, and what are the ethical concerns in private sector? Okay, very direct question. Simply you have to address the demand of the question. A little bit quote based question over here. A right delayed is the right denied. What do you understand by this statement? How can this principle be implemented in public life? Okay, so mainly what is required over here is that today most of our public policy are dealing with you know, welfare of people, welfare of people. And to achieve this welfare, we have come up with the idea of right based programs, right-based program. If you take, for example, right to information, right to education, NREGA, okay, all these schemes, or Food Security Act, all these schemes, okay, are all right-based programs. That means they have been given the right. But the question is asking, there is right that is given through all these policies, but if there is delay in giving these rights, it is again taking away the right. You may give them the right, but if you delay giving them or implementing these policies, etc., or if you don't deliver it properly, then it is equal to rights being denied. That is what the statement is explaining to you. See, for example, Food Security Act. Food Security Act. It gives the poor people the right to buy food grains. Food grains, or they are entitled to food grains, cheap food grains. Okay. But if there is delay in supplying of food, okay, though they are entitled, they are not receiving this food, then what is the problem? Similarly, your right to education. So they have been given the right, but still, if there are so many issues with these rights that they are not implemented truly in spirit. So basically, what this question is expecting you to write is the quality or timely service delivery. That is what this question is dealing with. So if you see your syllabus, there is a topic called as service quality of service delivery. One of the essential feature of quality of service delivery is timely service delivery. Timely service delivery. Because today in India, there is delay in everything that we are giving them. So roads are being delayed, schemes are not being stipend, pensions, they are not being transferred at the right time. Even judiciary, okay, there are more than 3.5 crore cases that is pending in judiciary. All this, if it is considered, it is right denied. We have justice system, we have judiciary, but if it is delayed, then the right is denied. All this is an argument that you have to make. Is that okay? So first you have to write what do you understand, by the statement. What have you understand by this statement? What I explained to you is what you should write in simple words. Okay, so it means that not just giving them the right, but also making sure that they are timely available, okay, in the quality and quantity that is necessary. This is nothing but talking about timely service delivery. Okay, so things like that can be given. Okay, how can this principle, and you can give example, you can give example of judiciary, you can give example of welfare scheme, where if you don't provide quality service delivery, then the right is being denied of the common man. How does this principle apply, implemented in public life? So you should write about the quality of service delivery in this case. Okay, so you should how to implement it, how to implement or how to improve the quality of service delivery. That is what you are expected to write here. How can this principle be implemented in public life? In other words, how to improve your quality of life. Okay. Yeah, so that is what is expected out of this. So this statement, right delayed is right denied, in this particular context is dealing with timely service delivery, which is one of the feature of quality service delivery. Next, what are the components? This is a direct question, unlike the previous one. Okay, so what are the components of effective service delivery? Analyze the challenges in ensuring quality in service delivery. Okay, again, very direct question. This is what are the components of effective service delivery? So you can first define what is service quality based on. Okay, so service quality means what? Service quality means what? Service quality means comparison of expectation with performance. So what is expected, what you can expect from the organization, and what is being given to you. That is what is service quality. So it is a minimum level of service in terms of quality, in terms of time, in terms of cost that an organization commits to give to its clients is known as your service delivery, quality of service delivery or service standards. So what are the components? What are the components? Okay, there are various dimensions or various components: competency, courtesy, credibility, security, access, communication, knowing the customer, tangibles, reliability, responsiveness, etc. So all that you should write. So what are the components of effective service delivery? You will write 1, 2, 3, 4, like that you will write. Next, you will talk about the challenges, that is, that analyze the challenges in ensuring quality of service delivery. What are the challenges? Matlab, what affects the quality of service delivery? What is leading to low quality service, especially in government service? Okay, what is leading to poor quality being provided by the government? That is what you have to mention over here. What are the main challenges? See, at least if you take civil services, one of the major issue is that the primary focus is on the convenience of service provider rather than service receiver. The officers, they will decide what time to give it, where they will give it, how they will give it. They will not look into the customers, or who is the customer here? The public, the common man. Their convenience is not taken into account. It is the convenience of the service provider, namely the civil servant's convenience, is taken into account. Other problems associated with this is complexity, lack of transparency and accountability, lack of performance standards. There is no set standards that they have to give. Inefficiency, poor work culture, corruption, complicated processes, archaic rules, laws, things like that are the challenges. Okay, so that is what is need to write over here. Analyze the challenges. Each of them you will have to little bit explain in 1 or 2 lines. And for your conclusion, you can write few lines and as to how to improve quality of service delivery. How to improve can be your conclusion. You can give some examples. If you are writing your KPSC exam, you can give one from the national and one from the state. You would have heard about a Sevottam model, or recently Karma Yogi program that you can mention, or you can write in Karnataka. You have your Karnataka Sakala Act, right? Karnataka Sakala Act. So you can write few lines on that. Okay, so that is how you increase or improve the quality in service delivery. Okay, so this is what you can write. Okay, what is a component of effective service delivery? Okay, so all this, what is, if it is asked, you can write in a flow chart. You can write it in a flow chart. So you can write like this: component, and then you can write, okay, competence, timeliness, courtesy. Okay, like that you can write component. Whenever the question is little bit direct, you can use flowchart. So have a mix of flowchart and paragraph so that there will be no monotony in the way your answer is written. Okay. Next. Okay. So again, if you see your syllabus, in your syllabus it is written, okay, foundational values of civil service. Civil services foundational value. The question is from that, very direct. What are the essential values that a civil servant must possess? Okay, so you can simply list the values and write few lines of why it is important for civil services, why it is necessary for civil service. List the values and write few lines on why civil services, why it is important from civil services point of view. Okay, so values like, I mean, whatever is mentioned in syllabus, you can write integrity, objectivity, neutrality, compassion, dedication to public service, what else? Anonymity, transparency. All these are values that are necessary for civil servant. So you can simply introduce by giving the context that civil services, okay, they are essential for ensuring good governance. So there are certain minimum standards that they need to inculcate in their actions. These values promote socio-political and economic justice and promotes good governance. Something like that you can write and start your answer. So here are some of the important values that are necessary for a civil servant, and then you will write your answers. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is one way of writing it. Or if you want to make it a little bit technical or appropriate, you can always mention ARC has recommended the following values, or Nolan Committee of UK has said the following. You can write like this and put it in a box in one corner of your answer. Just like Nolan Committee recommends the following value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like this, if you know about it, you can write it and put it in a corner. You will get extra 1 or 2 marks by just this one small change. Is that understood, guys? So if you are writing your answer like this, a small table or box you write, it gives the examiner that impression. Oh, this person knows something extra. So ARC report mentions the following. Like this, you write. The rest of your answer will be here like this. Rest of your answer will be like this. So especially when you find certain topics where you have read a little bit more, you should make use of it. Put it in a separate box and you can mention it like that. Is that okay, guys? This is very important. These small changes will fetch you 1 or 2 marks extra. 1 or 2 marks extra. Otherwise, the content is almost similar. What everybody would write. What are essential values? Everybody write. Maybe they'll add one extra value. You might add another extra value. But by making little bit small tweak in your answers, you will be able to write much better. Examine the relevance of empathy and compassion in civil services. Okay, why do you need compassion and why do you need empathy? Okay, so the better way to start, there are two ways to start over here also. One is definition, or you give the context of civil services. Context of civil. What is the context over here? Civil services have to deal with the complex environment. In addition to that, there are a lot of, in India, which is a developing country, India, a developing country, there is lot of inequality. There is lot of a large section of people who are poor. Okay, then there is violence, which can be social violence, economic violence, etc. In order to be a change agent, a civil servant must possess empathy and compassion. That can be one way of introducing your answer. Few lines, don't write a story, you just give the context. So civil services deals with, in a developing country like India, have to deal with lot of issues like inequality, poverty, discrimination, diversity. Yes, India is a diverse country. Unless we empathize with the culture of the beneficiaries, we will not be able to provide our fullest to them, right? So if a civil servant from, say, North India, okay, goes and is posted in South India, okay, among the tribal belt of South India, if he is not empathetic, if he is not compassionate, he will not be able to appreciate their way of life. Similarly, from South India or North India, they go to Northeast. So in Northeast tribal belt, they practice shifting cultivation. You go there and put a ban on that, and you say all these are bad practices, etc., etc. If you start telling that, and if you are not empathetic towards their way of life and their culture, etc., then it might lead to poor service, etc. Okay, then what else is required? Relevance, you can always say, okay, so once you have given the context, you will say empathy and compassion is necessary in civil services for the following reason. 1, 2, 3, like this. You will put some 4, 5, 6, 7 points. You will go on put. So to ensure welfare of the public, to prevent misuse of the power, to deal with the diversity in administration, to promote team building process in civil services, etc., you need to have empathy and compassion. So that you can write as many points you are aware of. You can write, give examples. Give examples here and then when you are explaining. Diversity may, you will say to address diversity, okay, you will give example of what I said. If posted in tribal belt, okay, an empathetic civil servant will be able to promote welfare among the tribals. Otherwise, if he says, oh, what is this? They're so, what do you say? They don't have any culture like that. If you are not empathetic, you will not be able to promote welfare among them. Okay, so examine the relevance of empathy and compassion. To conclude, you can say by doing so you can ensure good governance. You can ensure good governance. Next, lack of integrity is the source of all types of corruption. Explain with suitable example. Explain with suitable example. So again, you can define, you can introduce, you can start the question by answer by defining what is corruption. You can define what is corruption, or you can give some data relating to corruption. Okay, have these data, okay, in your what do you say, micro notes. Okay, so corruption is you can say that India is ranked 80th out of 180 in the recent corruption perception index. This is how you can start. Lack of integrity is the source of all corruption. Explain. Correct. So that is why you can start by saying that India, a developing country, is today placed at 80th by Transparency International. Corruption is takes place in all society, in all culture, but in India or in developing country like India, okay, it can lead to lot of economic and social problems. Okay, political, economic, ethical, moral problems in our society. That will be your introduction. That will be your introduction. Then you will say how lack of integrity leads to corruption. One of the major cause of corruption is lack of integrity. This is one way of starting your answer. The other way of starting is very simple. You define what is a corruption and you define what is integrity, and then you will say how lack of integrity leads to corruption. You will write points. Either that or either this. You can start. So lack of integrity means there will be misuse of discretionary power. Okay, personal greed will triumph over public need. Okay, there will be lack of values like empathy, sympathy, etc. Okay, there will be lack of transparency. Okay, things like that you can write. You can write like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. You should write lack of integrity, how it lead to corruption. Okay, and give examples everywhere. Discretionary power means, okay, you will give example. Okay, similarly, personal versus this one. So whenever they are provided monetary benefit, okay, they will think about themselves rather than the society. Like that, examples you can give. To conclude, you can just write few lines, okay, as to how you can reduce corruption. So you can say that integrity should be, essential for civil servant. It can be incorporated through training. We have to promote code of ethics, rule of law, empower citizens, promote decentralization, etc., to ensure corruption is eradicated from the root. Okay, something like that you can say and conclude. Don't your reforms should not be too much. Here they are only asking you how lack of integrity is the source of corruption. Okay, so this is how you can answer to this particular question. Okay. Okay, what we need today is not just efficient and domain expertise, but also those who are dedicated to service to the public. So if you again see the syllabus, you have dedication to public service as a topic. So this is asking why we need civil servant who are dedicated, and not just efficient. So this is economic criteria and expertise. Domain expertise. That means those who have knowledge. Those who have knowledge. So you need knowledge, you need to be efficient, you need to be well trained, but at the same time, you should have dedicated civil servant. Okay, that is what you are supposed to write. Why do you need a civil servant who is more dedicated? So a dedicated civil servant will be able to deal with all kinds of pressure. Yes or no? If he is not able, he is not dedicated, if he or she has to work late in the night, he may not be able to do his job properly. A dedicated person, irrespective of what time they are asked to work, so like that. So deal with pressures. Okay, will be ethical and of high integrity. A person who is actually dedicated would think the best for his job, and thus ethics and integrity would become a feature of it. Okay, like this. Okay, then what else? Um, they will integrate their goal and the organizational goal, in this case government, will align with each other. Things like this you should write. So how do we write this particular answer? So the introduction, okay, introduction, again you can give a context. What is the context? So most of the time we select civil servant based on their technical knowledge and their skill. So this has led to lack of empathy, lack of dedication, poor service delivery, etc. Thus, to address this, we need to ensure that civil servants are not just efficient or having a domain expertise, but also dedicated. This can be your introduction, and then you can write why or how dedication helps in ensuring good civil servant or ensuring welfare government or good governance. Like that you can write. A dedicated person will remain motivated even if the task given to him is unwanted, non-exciting. See, for example, if you are posted in some village, okay, or if you get into Tahsildar, let's say, you will be in some taluk which does not have proper internet connection or proper hotel, etc. You have stayed in Bangalore enjoying all the luxury, then you'll be posted somewhere. If you're not dedicated, you will not serve properly. Okay, then you will be indulging in wrong activities, unethical behavior. A dedicated person will not do so. Similarly, a dedicated person will be able to balance work and his family time, will be able to align his goal with the rest. Like that, you should be able to write. So the more point like this, you write 4, 5, 6, more point you write, it appears that you have a lot of different dimensions. Is that okay? So that's how you should write. Not just efficient, but domain expert, dedication to service to the public exam. Okay? Coming to EI. Okay, 2 questions on EI is there. So emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has been linked to life and workplace success. Linked to life and workplace success. It's a very direct question. So here you can start off defining what is emotional intelligence. You can define what is emotional intelligence. Okay, and the features of emotional intelligence, like for example, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage one's own emotion and those of people around us. Okay, so it has 5 key element, that is self-awareness, self-regulation, internal motivation, empathy, and social skill. That is what you can write in emotional intelligence. So how can emotional intelligence be linked to life and workplace? So that you have to write. So you can say that emotionally intelligent individual will be able to balance his work as well as his personal life. They will be able to deal with all stakeholders, whether it is seniors or with your juniors, and ensure that there is win-win situation. See, for example, while framing policies. They will be able to balance both the environmental and tribal needs and at the same time developmental needs. Promote, have a good and healthy peer relationship. Will be motivated all the time. Will have self-awareness. Will be able to come out of failures and lead the team. Things like that can be written. Workplace success may you can write. They will be efficient. He will be cooperating. There will be leadership quality. There will be leadership quality. Life may emotional intelligence, happy. Okay, peer relationship will be good. Peer relationship will be good. Motivated, come out of failures quickly. Okay, that is what you have to write. Emotional intelligence has been linked to life and workplace success, both life success as well as workplace success. Discuss does not here again means no, emotional intelligence is not required. Don't take that line. Discuss, you write all other dimensions of this particular idea. What is emotional intelligence? How emotional intelligence will help in success of self, how it will help in success of self, and how will it help in promoting good work efficiency or promote what do you say, promote workplace success. Into separate paragraph or two separate heading you can write, or you can combine both and you can write either of it you can do. What are social influence? How social media is changing the way we view real life. So very direct question. What is social influence? What is social influence? You will write. Okay, what is social influence? You will write. And you will probably, since it is a part of the question itself, you can write little bit about it. Okay, what is social influence? Little bit theory of it, components of social influence or features of social influence you can write. So about half to three-fourth of the page you should be writing about social influence. Social influence is way in which individual changes their behavior in order to meet the demands of the social environment. So you have Herbert Kellman, who says that there are three broad varieties of social influence. One is compliance, identification, and internalization. Okay, and then you will write a little bit about it. Then you will say how social media is changing the way we view real life. So here one way of writing it is how positively it is changing the way we live, and negative ill effect of it. Positive effect and negative effect. So positive effect is it helps citizens to participate. Okay, it helps citizens to participate. It will help in promoting democracy. Okay, it will also help in bringing about behavioral change. Social media can be used to bring about behavioral change. It will help in communicating with the public, two-way communication. Both the government as well as the public can communicate. What are the problems of social media? How is it changing? So everything is being influenced both positively and a negative influence. Okay, so there is what do you say, hate speech that is being spread, false news. Okay, similarly political opinions are being manipulated through social media. uh, Privacy is being affected. What else? Yeah, so these are some of the problems associated with social media. So how social media is leading to changing the way we view real life, both in positive as well as in negative. So positive may you can say the success of certain policies like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, okay, Beti Bachao Beti Padhao Andolan, okay, where they took selfie and that became a huge movement. Things like that can be called upon as positive change, whereas the negative change is negative impact on the real life is you can say mob lynching, fake news which led to northeastern community being harassed in this one, what, in our state. Things like that can also be said. How is social media changing the way we view real life? Okay, So then you can conclude the problems needs to be addressed. To address it, we can have the measures, following measures or something like that can be added. Okay, so that is what you need to write over here. The world today needs emotionally intelligent leaders, not just democratically elected, politically capable leaders. Do you agree with this statement? Justify your answer. Justify your answer. So here you can start by saying qualities of a leader. You can start with saying what is the quality of a leader. I mean, you can always start by defining what is emotional intelligence and all that, or you can start by saying that what is a quality of a good leader. A good leader may lead from front, who will be emotionally intelligent, who will be a capable individual, who will have high values and ethical standards, are considered to be one, of which emotionally intelligent leaders are of great value. Why? You can give reasons. That's all it is. Do you agree with this statement? Yes. You agree with the statement. Emotionally intelligent individuals will be able to address them more, address a lot of problems. They will be able to manage the stress. They will be able to address, resolve conflicts. Will motivate. Will be self-motivated. Will also motivate others. Will be able to communicate effectively and create a better team environment, promote better team management, will be efficient in the decision making, will be able to bounce back from adversities, will be a change agent, will be able to balance life and this one. So, like that, you should be able to write. And hence, because of this, we need emotionally intelligent leaders today more than just democratically elected leaders and politically capable leaders. So, in the introduction, you can say, how will we write this answer is, so what is quality of leaders that is required? Today, we focus, I mean, an elected representative, okay, may have political power, but may not be capable, may not be empathetic towards the people's problem. This is why today leaders are disconnected from the public. In order to reconnect the public and establish the true spirit of democracy, we need leaders with emotional intelligence. Then you will write emotional intelligence. So that is second. Then emotional intelligence will help in following ways. You will write, and in each 1 or 2 points, you will also write example. But please keep the example for only 2 to 3 lines. Don't explain it too much. So 2 to 3 lines of example may you end. So how emotionally intelligent leaders are good. Today we need them with suitable example, and you can conclude. Okay, so that is what is required for this question. Is that okay, guys? So, what are the qualities of a leader? If you don't know this, if you don't want to write, simply emotional intelligence definition. But however, today, democratically elected, politically capable leaders do not have the emotional intelligence and hence disconnected from the public, which is leading to lack of welfare, good governance, and something like that. Okay, then you will start your answer. Your 70% of your answer should be about why we need emotionally intelligent individual. Okay, guys. So this is about emotional intelligence. Next, distinguish between attitude and aptitude with suitable example. Okay, very simple, very direct question. Distinguish, differentiate between the attitude and aptitude. So what is attitude? So attitude relates to how we perceive something, correct? How we perceive something. So we like it or we dislike it. We look at it in a positive or negative manner. That is what is your attitude. Your attitude towards food, your attitude towards environment, your positive or negative. When you see vegetarian food and non-veg food, if you're a non-vegetarian, if you're a vegetarian, when you see non-veg food, your attitude is negative. So what is attitude is that. What is aptitude? Aptitude is the ability to acquire new skills. Ability to acquire new skills. Okay, it is about what do you say? A component of which helps you to absorb new skill set or absorb any new. So you have to have the aptitude, so that you can absorb new values, new skills, etc. So that is how we differentiate. So attitude can be negative, positive, or it can be indifferent. Whereas aptitude is just the ability to do certain kind of work. Okay, so like that you should be able to differentiate. So there is in the answer, this one there is difference. Okay, so you should write it. Example. Okay, example. Okay, say for example, a civil servant will have aptitude to learn about new language, etc. What is attitude? The attitude for him to learn. So he might have the ability. He might have the ability to learn, but the will to learn is attitude. I hope you understood. The ability to learn is aptitude. The will to learn it is attitude. So why is it necessary? You can write that also in conclusion or whatever. So you can say civil servants, when he has to learn about people, he should have the skill to learn about their culture, their language, let's say. That ability is aptitude. But even having aptitude, if they doesn't have the will to learn it, then it is about his attitude. So therefore, a civil servant should have both the aptitude as well as attitude, and then only they will be successful. Then only they will be successful. Okay, say you can quote even Swami Vivekananda, who said, knowledge without the application is totally lost. So the knowledge is the aptitude, the application, the ability, the will to do it is the application. So without the will to do it, if you just have the knowledge, there is no use. So that can be your conclusion. That can be your conclusion. So attitude is dealing with only mental aspect. Aptitude is both mental as well as physical. Aptitude, running and all that also comes under the aptitude. Okay, so this is how we distinguish between attitude and analyze Immanuel Kant's concept of deontological ethics. So it is analyze. So analysis means you should also criticize. So you give the features, positive and negative aspect of Immanuel Kant's concept of deontological ethics. So deontological ethics. So in your thoughts, you will be studying about various theories, okay, like utilitarian theory, scholastic theory, okay, deontological theory, etc. So deontological theory, one of the major proponents of deontological theory is Immanuel Kant. So he argues, so basically what are these theories? What are these theories? These theories are uh, are ways by which we evaluate whether an action is ethical or not. That time I told you about utilitarianism. Maximum utility is considered to be ethical. Whereas deontology says that any human action which abides by duty, okay, is known as is ethical. Any action, if it abides by duty, it is considered to be ethical. I'll repeat again. Okay, human action, if it abides by duty, it is considered to be ethical. Okay. Yeah, so you can write a little bit features about Immanuel Kant and deontological approach. So they mainly focus on duties and obligation in a given situation. So as a police officer, what is your duty? If you are performing your duty according to the rules, laws, etc., then you are considered to be ethical. So here they don't give importance to the consequence, etc. Okay, because it is considered to be very subjective. Here they say that you follow it, this one, it is very clear cut. Okay, it leads to less ambiguity, any kind of dilemmas you face, you will be able to take effective decision if you follow your duty. That is what deontological ethics says. In Indian context, you can always write that such universal moral standards is difficult to, is difficult to come across because of diversities in society. Absolute moral standards is not possible. Further, it leads to impersonality. You always follow duty, you become impersonal. If somebody is suffering on the streets, okay, if it is not your duty, if you don't do it, then also you will be considered ethical through deontological theory. So it dehumanizes the ethical premise. So introduces impersonality by eliminating all emotions. You just have to do duties. You just have to simply do your duty. If you do it, you are correct. Okay. Similarly, if your duty wants you to do some harm, okay, then also it is considered to be morally correct. Say for example, in Germany, okay, the German army or the German bureaucrats, they were killing innocent Jews. So they were also they can also be justified under deontological ethics because the bureaucrats were simply following their duty. Their duty was what? To abide by the command given by their seniors. They were doing their duty. So they were not looking into the outcome, the consequence, nothing. They were simply following the duties. Similarly, when there is two or more duties which is under conflict, okay, it is not clear as to how to take decision. Situation where two or more duties come under conflict, don't know how to address it. So like that, critical analysis also has to be done. So who is Immanuel Kant, or what is his theory? What is deontological theory? Explain it, features, okay, and then you can critically evaluate on whatever I have mentioned right now. Okay, such kind of question can be asked in your exam as well. Emotional intelligence is a key character sought after in civil servants today. Comment on the comment on the role of emotional intelligence in effective leadership. So here the question is specifically asking you role of emotional intelligence in civil services leadership. Okay, in civil services leadership. Very simple. Start with what is emotional intelligence. Okay, start with what is emotional intelligence. Define the needs of a leader, what constitute a good leader, and how emotional intelligence helps in achieving this. Okay, give some examples from current affairs. Give some examples from the current affairs, etc. Okay, and conclusion, you can give some suggestion as to how emotional intelligence can be developed in civil servant. Okay, anyways, I've explained this earlier also. Same content can be used, but align it with why it is necessary in civil services, that you need to align it. But otherwise, probably you can apply it. It is almost the same framework can be used. Okay, and last one, behavior and attitudinal change are necessary for success of government initiative. Illustrate. So again here, the question is asking about behavior and attitudinal change. That is social influence. How can you influence people to change their behavior and attitude? And why is it necessary for the success of government? See, let's try to understand the premise of this question. So the question is asking you that why do you need behavioral change for the success of policy? Let's take an example of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So campaign, cleanliness campaign has been has been introduced in India for more than 2 decades now. Cleanliness campaign. We have Swachh Bharat, this one earlier, Nirmal Bharat was there, total sanitation scheme was there. Like that, you had many schemes even in the past that were dealing with various cleanliness campaign, but they were not very successful as compared to the present Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Similarly, you had this financial inclusion scheme. Okay, you had financial inclusion scheme before Jan Dhan Yojana. Many such schemes had been introduced by the government, but they were not very successful. They were not very successful because people's participation were low. Why? Because their behavior and attitude were not in align with what was the demand of the government. And that is why there was not success. So today we believe, today's welfare governance believe that it is essential that there is behavior and attitudinal change among the public in order to ensure success of the government policies. So that is the premise of this question. So you can start off by giving the major hurdle in the success of government. Major hurdle in the success of government is lack of public participation. Why? Because either they lack the knowledge or they lack the what do you say behavior and attitude towards the public, towards the goal set by the government. That is the introduction you can give. So major hurdle for the success of government policy is the lack of people participate, because the question is asking illustrate, you give an example. So the failure of earlier schemes dealing with cleanliness campaign was because of poor public participation. So today we realize the importance of this person. So we cannot have a passive public. We cannot have a passive public. We cannot have a passive public. This acts as a major barrier of government to deliver the policies. So we need active involvement and cooperation. And then you will write importance of behavioral and attitudinal change, because they lead to a lot of economic social benefit. Okay, so several points you can write with example. See, for example, individual will not always behave in the best interest of the community, because they all behave in their own interest. So we need to bring about attitudinal change to align their goal with the societal goal. That will be the first point. For example, recycling. An individual will not do it because it either costs money or it is time consuming. There is no benefit for individual. So you bring about attitudinal change, saying that it benefits you also, it benefits the environment, etc., etc. So they will then promote. So you need to align individual needs and the community need. Similarly, behavioral change, okay, is necessary in order to ensure that the government is able to solve complex problems. Okay, see, for example, health. Health. Let's say obesity. Okay, let's say obesity. See, obesity may, whatever the government funds various health initiatives, it will not be successful unless the public participate, because it is complex. See, the obesity is not simply caused due to either availability or lack of availability of the right kind of food. It also is because of the people's awareness, people's attitude towards health. So creating attitude, like Fit India movement campaign is leading to behavioral and attitudinal change. That is the example that you can do. Similarly, it will also reduce the cost. It will also reduce the cost. Behavioral change is more permanent and it is more cost effective. Similarly, citizens will cooperate more. There needs to be less coercive. Okay, if you change the behavior of people, people will participate on their own. You don't have to coerce them. You don't have to force them. Okay, so things like that can be written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like this, points with examples you can write. Even like wearing mask. It is uncomfortable. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to bring about behavioral and attitudinal change by providing messages on television, campaign by celebrities, etc., in order to promote these things. Okay, so that is what is asked in the question. So behavior and attitudinal change are necessary for the success of the government. Is that okay? Okay, so that completes the last question. Is there any doubt? Conclude. Okay, to conclude, what all you have to do for your next ethics paper, for your next ethics paper. So one, you will collect some data and information. You will have some general framework. You will have a list of definition. You will have a list of definition on all topics that is mentioned in the this one. Then you will have some examples, some ready-made examples of civil servants, their actions, great personalities, etc. What else? What else will you do? Um, yeah, I think these things you have to prepare. Okay, and then whenever, whether it is this or any other general studies paper you are writing, you have to focus on how you are writing your answer. So I am evaluating several answers. I see that many of you are just trying to fill your papers. Don't do this. Okay, what is the demand? One is that what is the demand? Keep it simple. Okay, keep it simple. Okay, and write in more address more dimension. Let it be crisp so that you will be able to write the same thing what you write in half page in 2 to 3 lines. That should be there. Okay, and write more number of words within that. Matlab, like don't, like efficiency, economy, things like that. You put it in one line itself. So you don't have to write it separately. Don't go on explaining the same thing again and again. Okay, it is self understood. When you say inflation, let's say, when you say inflation, it is understood. You don't have to say inflation, that is rise in price level. Don't write this. Inflation means it is understood. Efficiency, you will write, it is understood. You won't say efficiency, that means there will be more productive. Don't have to write like that. You simply have to mention the word and leave it at that. So practice more.